Okay, everybody, glad to have you here. It's been a while, it feels like. It has been a while. Happy New Year.
Why we got so many empty seats here tonight?
People may be lost.
Oh.
Who knows?
I
But
think some people may have gone to the stock show, like I did.
Happy New Year for those of you who made it here and figured out we're here, not at the National Western this evening. And we're glad to have you here. Just so you know, we had a great National Western this year. We broke records again this year with attendance and ticket sales. It was a very strong year.
Great.
Just want to thank all of you who contributed to that as well, who showed up and bought tickets, and David, who was a vendor. So I just want to thank everyone who participated in the National Western in any way from the CAC on behalf of the board of directors of the National Western. Marie, you have anything to say?
No, other than for those of you who've come in, please make sure that you sign in and take your placard if you're a committee member.
So we're going to start with...
Are you Jennifer Hillhouse in the turquoise shirt?
No, that is not Jennifer.
She's not here.
Did you know that your name tag says Jennifer Hillhouse? Because I think of you as a little bit different.
You want me to get you?
I didn't know what the hell you were talking about.
Change, or
Okay, Vern, honey. Oh, Jesus, Drew.
I don't think I made that quite a change.
Wow. That's quite the transition.
That was very good, Drew.
Wow. When Drew comes back, we'll have an update on the EOC.
I'm listening. Oh,
You're up, kiddo.
just you. Okay.
You can sign in later.
Okay. I didn't know we were, okay.
Okay, now I'm politically correct now.
So, we had the EOC meeting today, and usually, so some of the people that presented at that meeting, they do a much better job of summarizing. Barb Frummel. I don't know if you're going to talk.
I think I'm on.
Okay.
She
She
is.
is.
So you're going to talk about the stadium arena and also the task force or something that you've put together, I guess. Technical assistance grant.
Oh, yeah, I'll talk about that.
You'll talk about that, and also I forgot your Emily Glockner is going to talk about the parking study, which I think is is really, really important for these neighborhoods. So that's coming up, and I think we need to pay attention to the parking issue. That's huge for the neighborhoods, and so Emily's going to introduce that. And we talked a lot of the same things: land acquisition that's proceeding, the rail consolidation was mentioned. Those are kind of recurring things at the EOC. The one thing that was pretty interesting was something we kind of all agreed on, which was a National Western regeneration framework, which to me was basically creating a net zero campus, and net zero, I think, from the point of view of energy, water, and waste. And so there was sort of some schematic diagrams that were about the campus that is kind of over my head, but I have these diagrams. If anyone wants to look at them, I can share them with you. It probably would be good if somebody else summarized this, maybe like Eric Shaffrin. Is he coming? Or okay, he's probably the better person to talk about that. And we also, Jocelyn Hiddle talked about the Water Resources Center. And that the design is proceeding on that, and I think there's going to be some upcoming community meetings. I know that that's the first building on the campus, so we want to participate in that. And I think many of you were at the meeting with Jocelyn and Per Hempstead, the architect from CSU, last month. So that's that's really significant to the community. That's the first building that will be there, and it will have community spaces. So we want to definitely participate in that.
Want to reemphasize the importance of that structure.
Yeah, John, I think for you, that's very important. I think for everyone, it's as kind of an icon, but also what it can do for the community. And those were the major things that were talked about today at the EOC.
Liliana?
Just a quick, so I know we're talking big picture right now, but when I hear regeneration plan but hear zero waste, to me those are slightly incongruent, meaning to be regenerative means you're making it better, not just minimizing your impact. So in thinking about how they're developing that plan, in the specifics, for it to be really regenerative, if that's what they're going to call it. And I know it's big picture right now.
I'm not the person. Yeah, that's a really good point, Liliana. I'm not really the person to explain what's planned, and so probably you should direct that question to Eric.
Okay.
There's a whole team that's been established. Includes National Renewable Energy Lab and others. There's a whole matrix that actually, you go back in the master plan, it's Appendix D. So what Drew is referencing this was actually an administrative effort that when Eric was here today, there was an outstanding item that we had to finish as part of the master plan, which was this work that we did, and it became a timing issue. We needed these visuals, and we'll get this and post it. But Eric can walk you through how this document really will guide the work going forward and starting to evaluate options for a complete set of systems around energy waste.
I think it's something we should probably put on the agenda as a discrete item at some meeting in the near future.
Yeah, I was going to say, Liliana, is maybe you could, if you just wanted to have Eric maybe just go through, there's a couple diagrams on waste, and I would enjoy just having it explained a little more. That's a good question.
I think,
Sure.
I think the importance of this entire effort, energy, water, waste, recycling, the whole bit, electricity, this can be used as excuse the term, a guiding light for the entire neighborhood, the entire area. We've got a lot of redevelopment that's going to be coming, in addition that's already here. And we're going to run out of energy one of these days, and we're going to have water rationing one of these days. So anything that can come out of this, and that will benefit people in and around the neighborhoods. There's an article in the paper this morning about composting, and certainly CSU's been in the leadership role in that for many years. So that'll help a lot of people around the neighborhood. If we have to develop a method for taking what we do here and translating it into a reality and how it affects the neighborhood and how it could help the neighborhoods and private homes and in businesses and community efforts. And I think, again, this is a wonderful opportunity for living, learning process. So I just want to reemphasize how important that is, and we'll get into a whole lot of stuff later.
Great.
John, kind of related to that, there's one point that I kind of brought up today about the water center, and I hope Jocelyn might go into it too, is CSU is working with Denver Water on this water center, and I think to fully integrate it, I kind of wish that the city, I expressed a desire that the city might also deal with the stormwater issue and integrate that into this water center. I mean, many people here were at a meeting last night where the stormwater projects were discussed and how we're dumping all of the stormwater into the Platte River at Global Landing. So I think integrating stormwater into the water center's program and would be a good idea.
Okay.
So, anything else, Drew, on the EOC?
That's all I have.
Any questions for Drew? Okay.
I have a very quick, did you feel the apportionment, they were talking about the apportionment of the funds coming in from the different sections. Did you feel like that was clear with the bond measure and all that? Did you?
I
I mean,
wrote
that's
down,
that's an area where I'm a little, I just want to track real well.
you know, they went by it really fat. You talk about like the 425 millions of
Yeah.
bonds that were approved. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not quite sure how to report that out. Or
they
get
did
some
go
help-
through it really
some help with
fast.
some help understanding.
Okay.
So maybe
I'll cover
that
that.
could be elaborate, because I wrote down some figures, but they didn't add up. So-
And there's a
It's
sec.
a handoff to Kelly real quick.
Yeah, actually, it's a natural segue because Kelly has to leave a little early, so we're going to jump ahead to Kelly
Yeah, I apologize.
for all
I have to
Kelly-related
pick a child
things.
up from basketball practice. So I have to leave. I have a hard stop to sing. So Happy New Year, if I have not seen you since our last.
Oh yeah, and by the way, congratulations to Kelly Lead on this new appointment.
Hey. So that's, thank you. Thank you for throwing me the softball. So that's my first. I have 4 kind of points to cover, and I'll add the 5th about the bond issue that what Gretchen talked about today. So one is, if you did not see it, the mayor issued a press release on Tuesday announcing the creation of the Office of the National Western Center and my appointment as the executive director of that office. And that's the next step towards advancing this project. You know, as you know, over the last 3 years, I've managed the NDCC and all 6 projects, of which the National Western is one. You know, it is. We're obviously this last year was a bellwether year in terms of our ability to advance this project. Now that we have funding in place, and it requires full-time attention. So I will be transitioning out of my current role over the next 90 days or so. The mayor has already started a process of finding my replacement as the executive director of the NDCC, so someone will come in and fill that role. There's still a ton of work to do, and the mayor is equally committed to making sure that we continue to advance those other projects, but I will be moving on to this effort. So as part of that, they're obviously like starting any kind of startup. There's we got to build a team, which I'm working on, an internal city team, and a funding stream to support that office, and a whole variety of things that will happen over the next 90 days or so. So I'm obviously super excited and super humbled. I've heard from a lot of folks. This is a very humbling experience and one that I take very seriously, and that we deliver the vision of this project for the benefit of these communities and for this city and for this state. So lots ahead of us. So that's 1. 2 is obviously one of our first efforts is the development of our work plan, 2016 work plan for the National Western Center. We are working, and it's no longer just the city's work plan. There's integration of work that CSU has responsibility for. There's integration of work that the National Western Stock Show, Western Stock Show Association has. All those things have to be brought together into a seamless work plan that we will be building over the course of this first quarter, so that we're working from one kind of playbook, for lack of a better term, with deliverables and milestones, and it helps us set agendas for future meetings, for deadlines we have to set and meet, et cetera, to move this project along, because there's so many moving parts. So you'll start to see the work plan emerge as part of this transition. That was item 2. Item 3, obviously, this is when you add both the money the voters of Denver approved and the money that the legislature granted through House Bill 1344 to advance the CSU buildings, we're talking about $1 billion project. And there is fiduciary, legal, and fiduciary responsibilities that the city has, its partners, CSU has, the state of Colorado. We're serving a lot of people in terms of the different streams of money that are coming into this project. So obviously we have to formalize everything we do because we're stewards of the people's money. And obviously there are other partners that will come on board. And so again, as part of creating predictability for this project, it will get more formal in its structure and in its delivery, so that everybody has certainty about how we're doing the project over time and when decisions have to be made, and the deliberation or due diligence that we have to do on aspects of the project as we move it forward. So I just want to prepare you that there are steps we'll have to take just to formalize the work, because we're accountable now not just to the City Council but to the state legislature in the delivery of this effort. That's the third. The last is, and I'll touch on, Drew referenced one of the quick report outs today was we were in City Council this week for the first bond issuance, which is specific to the voter-approved 2C, Measure 2C. So again, that's the extension of the lodgers and car rental tax. So this is the first request to take down money for the Convention Center and the National Western Center. So the total issuance is $425 million. And that $425 million is broken into a couple parts, so I'll describe them. $200 million of that is for the National Western Center. And that allows us to move on our first task, which is land acquisition, rail consolidation, and some other early design work, early professional service work we have to do. The bulk of that money is going to land acquisition. That's the ability to buy all the land that we need to fulfill the vision. $6 million of the $425 is for the Convention Center. So that money will allow them to advance the planning for the Convention Center. And then there's about $19 million or so that is for what we'll call contingency as it relates to the cost of issuing the bonds, project or reserves that they will have to create, and just the cost of issuing the money. So that number will flex. It may be 19, it may be 15, it may be a little less, a little more, but that's something you build into an issuance. And then the last part is they're going to basically pay off the bonds, the existing bonds for the Convention Center, which were issued in 2005 at a much higher interest rate. So they will buy out those bonds and then basically package a new issuance with lower costs of borrowing for the remaining debt on the Convention Center. So this allows the city to borrow money at less cost and take out those old bonds as part of this effort. So it doesn't do anything to affect advancing the Convention Center or advancing the National Western Center, but it's a way for the city to reduce the cost of the overall borrowing or overall debt, because it's the same funding stream that is supporting both the existing debt on the Convention Center and the new debt on the new Convention Center work as well as the National Western. What I will do is we'll send you the whole slide deck so you have it with a kind of a summary, but it walks you through page by page kind of how the 425 breaks down and the reasons why we're doing it this way, and to take advantage of the city's high credit rating and what the dollars are being used for. So obviously happy to answer any questions, but those were the four things I wanted to cover before I had to leave.
John, then
Go ahead.
Mickey.
Mickey, go.
Kelly, one of the issues that's come up recently at the stormwater and is really the fact that most of Globeville is in a floodplain. And in fact, a permit was recently tried to be obtained, and they had to raise the height of the ground in Leadville. It's at 45th and Washington, some 4 feet. And that appears to be the city's position in Globeville. It really means that this whole area is going to be severely handicapped over the next at least 3 years before the Corps of Engineers comes up with their study. One, does it affect National Western's plans? And two, more importantly, what can we do in order to basically alleviate this situation? We worked hard to really make Globeville attractive for new development. In effect, between lenders' reluctance to lend within the 100-year floodplain and the 4-foot levee, what can we do to basically alleviate this situation?
So to be honest, I'm probably not the best person to answer that because I'm not a water engineer. I have not been as close to those meetings. Certainly didn't attend last night's meeting, and have not been close to the planning I've not been attending all those meetings relative to the planning of the outfall project, but I'm certainly, I will take your question back and get responses. I mean, I'm certainly not aware of, specific to the National Western project, of those two, the two basin to the east or global landing outfall that goes through the Coliseum parking lot affecting the National Western in any way. Obviously, we still have to, as part of the redevelopment of the National Western, come up with a stormwater management system. Since we're reactivating the river, that's being done and will be informed by the Army Corps of Engineers project, which is underway now. But for your other two questions, I'm not the appropriate person to answer that, and I'm happy to get the people that are and get the responses back to this group.
That's partly my question. Thank you. Another thing I wanted to ask you, and I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you have any idea, you might clue us in on who your replacement might be on the North Denver Collaborative?
Good question. So the mayor's put, look, I mean, the mayor is putting a lot of, it's going to continue to be an appointed position by the mayor. That person, whomever that is will have the appropriate skills to pick up where I have left off. We're going to be partners and working closely together. But no, I mean, there's going to be a competitive process. The mayor's chief of staff is leading the selection of my replacement, Janice Sinden, and she has assembled a group of the other appointees within that the mayor has said he wants their help in finding my replacement. But the goal is to move relatively quickly so that we lose no momentum.
Good. Thank you.
Mickey, I'll come back. Let's go to 8.
Yes,
So as a follow-up to that, I would like to suggest an interactive with this selection process that I thought worked really well with the selection of the new public librarian recently, where there was actually an opportunity for the public to hear the candidates talk a little bit and send up questions. And I know this, we have to move quickly, and I don't know how to do this, but I feel like a sort of a feedback loop would be great on kind of along the what has and hasn't been working, or where do we go from here, and to put some concepts to activate the NWC becoming anyway, just an idea, and some kind of feedback loop so we can be part of the selection process.
Okay. That typically is not how appointees are selected.
A lot of what we're doing isn't typical.
I know, and I will certainly take that back to the mayor, but that is the mayor's call.
So I guess
This is his appointee.
Sure, and no worries. I'm just, you give it a try.
I will ask.
Then, just quickly, on the CSU is a capital partner, but on the MLU partners, Denver Museum of Nature and Science and History Colorado don't have any fiduciary obligations in this, right? It's the City of Denver, the National Western, and CSU. Is that how it works?
As of right now, correct. The intent, and certainly this is, you're talking about History Colorado, Museum of Nature and Science, have not, at this, the founding partners have not, those two in particular, have not made fiduciary asks or commitments to the project. Obviously, History Colorado's content and staff that's very valuable. I think as the Denver Museum of Nature and Science programming discussions evolve, there may be some fundraising associated with that. But right now, the big three are the city, CSU, through the state money, and the National Western, the money they have to raise.
Great. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
One of the things that the neighborhood has been particularly concerned about is the marijuana issue, the number of marijuana facilities here. Before City Council is the omnibus bill and a plan to have the moratorium in effect for 2 years until we can basically understand all of the issues. I think there are numerous issues. I've been at least one of the meetings. Vern's been to many. And I don't know whether the National Western is taking a position on the moratorium. It's been a concern in terms of acquiring properties.
Not for us.
Well, at one point in time when you were talking about acquiring that one property, there was an issue as to whether it is an issue for the whole area. It's not an issue for National Western. And are you saying that it doesn't make any difference to the National Western whether there is this moratorium or not?
So can I ask a follow-up question so I'm clear about?
Sure.
When you say the National Western, we have 5 primary partners, 3 investment partners, the city being one of those partners. So are you asking, do the 3 partners that are making investments into the site have a position?
There is a decision-making process, and I'm not going into how that
Well, I can't
decision
speak
is
for-
made.
I can't speak for CSU, Mickey.
I think we have a real concern, and I wondered if you're not prepared to really weigh in on this, if we could ask this group
okay.
to basically take a position that they would like to see the 2-year moratorium go into effect until we can study the impacts, because we're mostly affected. We even talked about energy. One of the biggest energy users are the marijuana people.
Right.
And if we're concerned, talking about a zero energy when we're surrounded by users who are using tens of thousands of kilowatts of energy, I think we all have a concern on many levels, and would like to see if this group would take if there's any issue in terms of us taking a position on that.
I will only speak for myself as an appointee. The mayor has an Office of Marijuana Policy, Ashley Kilroy. If you have questions, and I think you guys have met with her, her responsibility is to lead those efforts on behalf of the mayor. She is also an appointee of the mayor. So, my position is going to be whatever the mayor's position is relative to the Office of Marijuana Policy from the city, because I can't speak for CSU and I can't speak for the National Western, and certainly I'm not. You guys, as a body, have every right to go forward to Ashley's office or to the mayor and make a recommendation of him that you have concerns about this. That you are free to do that. But I'm gonna, as an appointee of the mayor, whatever his position is, will be mine.
Well, I know we have an agenda, but I would hope that under new business, that Vern, who's been very active in this, could lead the discussion, and perhaps we could take a vote since it comes up within the next couple of days. Is that fair, Vern?
Okay, you mean lead a discussion on it now at this point?
After we
when we
finish
do open
the
discussion.
agenda, to go through and just ask the group to tell them what their position and the neighborhood position is, and see if we're willing to vote on that matter.
Okay, I would do that. And I would also, if I can add to that, Jacqueline, are you in, Jocelyn, I'm sorry, are you in a position to have any kind of input on this at this point?
Not really. I don't think CSU is really, it's probably not appropriate for us, and it certainly wouldn't be appropriate for me without running it up the chain to sort of have an official position on this.
Okay, well, we would ask if you could.
Sure.
And let us know where you stand. Thank you.
I mean, again, just to be clear, for the purposes of the National Western Center, I mean, there is a parcel, the large grow facility, that is excluded from land acquisition, but in terms of our ability to move this project forward, we actually are acquiring one of the retail facilities, which is on the DPS bus barn site. And they are going to be subject to that process that we go through in their acquisition. And I'm sorry, Nola, this is my last question because I'm already late. I have to leave, but I'm happy to take one last question.
I was just going to say, no, in addition to the moratorium, no transfers into the neighborhood as well. That's the other piece to add to it. And then
License transfers?
Huh?
License transfers?
Right.
Oh.
And then I was wondering about so the new the National Western office that you're moving to. So are you still a cabinet member?
I've never been a cabinet member. I mean, I'm not
You're
I am a sub-cabinet member. I get invited when the bigger group gets invited, but I'm not part of that core group.
Okay, but you and your team will be city employees
Correct.
and paid by the city by 2C dollars or by what?
Yeah, so that's part of the standing the office up. We're going to use a variety of revenue streams to support the office. We're being created by executive order by the mayor.
Okay.
I mean, what I think it's important for this group to hear is that this is part of, the mayor's deliberateness in making sure this project gets delivered. And this is not being assigned to multiple agencies. The sole purpose of this body is to deliver this project. That's all we're going to think about. And I will partner with whoever replaces me to make sure that we're leveraging the opportunities in delivering the other 5 projects for which the NDCC still has responsibility.
Okay.
Kelly, before you leave real quick, I know that you're not going to be the point person here anymore.
No, that's not true. I will be the full-time point person because I will be working on this project solely.
But now that you're appointed, though,
I've always been appointed.
Won't there be somebody else directly running this, or are you going to continue to run that in the same role?
I'm going to run the National Western Center project.
Which I thought was separate from this.
This body is the advisory committee to the National Western Project. So you still get to deal with me. Sorry. I'm really sorry.
The was to empower Maria and Karen and turn them loose and let them go.
No, sorry, you still get me. So.
That's okay.
Well, before Kelly leaves, I want to say one thing. Indulge me just a minute. And I've said it before. I want to say it again. I'm delighted to have Kelly dealing with just the National Western. I had my doubts to begin with. We spoke about that, Kelly, 3 years ago.
Yes, I remember distinctly.
You know, truth comes to tell, and I think that we have a real advocate. We just got to get the information to him. I think fairness is there, and it's up to us to make sure he gets the message of our needs. So I'm satisfied, and I hope everyone else is. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Armando.
Armando, you came in at the right time, babe. You're second on the agenda.
Yeah, in terms of the finances, our committee did not meet this month, and as many of you know or did not know, Carol has decided to leave for her own. Carrie. I think she's going to be the next one of our candidates for the governor to come around, but that remains to be seen. Other than that, we plan on meeting in February and looking at all the funding options. And I think it was really kind of cool in terms of how the structure and financing is going to come. So I think as those roles, as funding sources come in, they'll be able to align that structure in terms of how these funds will be allocated throughout this process as we move forward. That's about as much as I got to tell you.
Any questions for Armando? Okay, we'll move on to AE and EPAS, Event Program Advisory Subcommittee.
Ed Nichols not.
No.
Well, I'm going to try and remember Kelly's email. The February 22nd EPAS was canceled due largely to people.
You mean January?
It was canceled. I didn't hear what you said, but
You said January. You said February.
Thank you. Thank you very much. January 22nd was canceled due to key people being taken away to have to put together the bond thing. People just couldn't do too much for everybody. So the next one is February 9th, which I really invite people to come to. It's at 2:30 to 4 at the Visit Colorado, 1550 California. I know it's downtown. And I just want to say, as kind of to try and continue to prime the pump for people regarding this events programming advisory subcommittee, that I really want it to be a participatory thing. I'm hoping for enriched representation. I've invited Liliana, if she can fit it in her horrific schedule, to come and talk. She's very interested in early childhood education. I'm going to call it soft program. There's soft and informal programming, all kinds of things we can do as we work toward getting the venues up, and I just hope we can have some ideas where we can activate our interest in the themes of the stock show in the neighborhoods as quickly as possible and not wait for the buildings, because we've got great leadership in the MOU partners. I mean, we've got urban agriculture, we've got early childhood education, lifelong learning, STEM education, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We can do grants for pilot programs or demonstration programs. We can get creative. The kids right now can start to get the understanding that this is going to be for them, and I just think there's so much we could do. And I'm not talking about lots and lots of time, but please think of this as an active sounding board. And I'm voicing some hopes that we can create more of a feedback loop between this body, the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee, and all the committees for ideas and somehow getting a consensus of what people's priorities are. I feel too much in a void. Patricia Carmody, who I really feel is an incredibly important asset, and Riverside should be an important part of the EPAS, overloaded. I haven't gotten a complete read from her about, she's the alternate, and I just feel she's more of a coach. I don't like this. Anyway, I feel we need to enrich the representation somehow. And so I'm going to try to invite people, and I just think it could be really creative and very supportive of informing the venues as they're developed over the next couple of years. So anyway, I just feel free. These are wide open committees. And I would like for there to become a process where this advisory committee, with the neighborhoods very much in mind, can bring ideas and kind of somehow create some sort of a sense of, here's how we'd like the EPAS to prioritize and emphasize what's important to the neighborhoods, and create more of a framework for feeding back into this advisory committee. And this will help create a public trust kind of administration for the whole project, which is different from a conventional kind of. If anybody, beyond that, there hasn't been much going on. If anybody wants to discuss anything now, that's great.
Any questions for AE? Okay, we'll move on. Thank you.
Erica, since Kelly left, we have review public meeting schedule on the agenda. Is there anything that we need to add, or you need to add or send, since he covered stuff pretty briefly?
Oh, you know what, maybe, I don't know, honestly.
Okay.
A couple of things, though.
Can you stand up so everybody can hear you?
And I mentioned this to the folks who were at the EOC earlier today, we're making some revisions to the website. So now folks, instead of going through the NWC-CAC, they can just go directly to denvergov.org/National Western, and it'll go directly to that site. But one of the things that we're working on is making sure that we can post all of the different agendas from all of the different meetings, including all of the notes and those kinds of things, so that it's easy and accessible to folks. And it's also, sorry, I just didn't recognize you. You just caught me off guard, sorry. And also making sure that we've got a link from the current website that you all use for information for the CAC back to the city and vice versa, so that it's looped and it's easy and accessible to everybody. With regards to the public meeting schedule, I don't know if you meant in general, but there's I know Roger and I are working on how to do that.
But you got the calendar updated on the site, right? You mentioned that.
Yeah, the calendar's on the website, and it's been on our website, except it was kind of out of use for the last 3 or so months. But all of the different public meetings as it relates to the NDCC, as it relates to the National Western, including the EOC, the EPAS, all of those are posted on there. So that should be a place where you can go and get the latest information on what's happening.
Okay, thank you.
I should mention, in connection with getting information, Tricia Ortega, we have hard copies of the 3 ring notebooks. So we have hard copies of the materials that each of the subcommittees are generating for people that, just so you know, so if people ask about that, it's been generated.
Okay. Kelly is gone. Eric, he covered a lot of the stuff, so we'll just go ahead and continue. Do you want to, we'll just continue going in the order of the agenda? So,
yeah, that's going to be
okay. So, Emily,
Great.
can you introduce yourself? And
I will. Absolutely. I'm Emily Gluckner, and I'm the transportation specialist with NDCC. I joined the NDCC team about 5 months ago for the city, and I'm happy to be here and working on such an exciting project. A little bit about me. I'm a civil engineer. I have over 20 years experience focused on transportation engineering and transportation planning. I worked previously for the city of Denver about 10 years ago when Stapleton was redeveloping and the City Flat Valley was redeveloping, and went over to the private side for a while, and now I'm back and excited to be back and working with this group and working in this neighborhood. In general, I want to give you guys an update on the transportation demand management plan and the parking study that we'll be doing for National Western Center. And I'll also talk a little bit about the NDCC master mobility study that we'll also be doing this year. So the intent of these studies that we're going to be taking on this year is to build upon these completed plans that have so much neighborhood input. We want to honor the recommendations in the neighborhood plans and honor all the great planning that has already happened associated with not only the National Western Center's master plan, but the Globeville and Elyria-Swansea neighborhood plans. These studies that I'm going to be talking about are really technical studies. The idea is to kind of set up the city so that they can implement some of the recommendations in the study. We need to give some of the recommendations a little bit more teeth, identify how much some of these recommendations are going to cost to implement, and then set up a priority for implementation as we move forward. So as you guys are probably aware, NDCC really covers the Globeville neighborhood, the National Western Center, Elyria-Swansea neighborhoods, the Rhino Arts District, and a little bit of the Cole neighborhood as well. There's 4 transit stops within the NDCC area. The 41st and Fox station is really going to be connected to the Globeville neighborhood, and it's going to be associated with the Gold Line that will be coming online this fall. The 38th and Blake and the 40th and Colorado stations will both be associated with the East Corridor, and those are going to be coming online this spring. Really soon, so yeah, that's going to be a great thing. And then the last but not least, the National Western Center station, which is associated with North Metro, that'll be coming online in the next couple of years, and construction for that line is already underway. So as I said, we're going to be building on these neighborhood plans that have already been completed and approved through the city. This is the Globeville roadway connectivity plan that really highlights the connection into the 41st and Fox station area and the National Western Center, and then identifies the mobility improvements associated with not only vehicular mobility, but pedestrian and bicycle mobility as well. The Elyria-Swansea connectivity plan also identifies those multimodal connections that we will be connecting. Sorry, I heard something over here. We'll be connecting into the National Western Center and the 30th and Blake Station area, and then the 40th and Colorado Station area as well, and then the National Western Center's infrastructure connectivity plan that'll kind of pull all of that together. So within that National Western Center plan, there's a whole slew of recommendations associated with that plan, including infrastructure improvements, the park along the Platte River, renovating existing buildings, building some new buildings, and then building a parking structure for the area that will be associated with the TODs, and really enhance kind of the shared uses in the area. So our master plan, or this parking plan, is going to really maximize the network in the area. Our intent for this parking master plan is to right-size the parking in the area so we're not overbuilding the parking, so we're not inducing a whole bunch of new trips into the area that don't need to be induced. We want to identify a list of strategies to encourage people to utilize active transportation. Some of those could be simple things such as showers in buildings so that people can ride their bikes to work and feel comfortable doing that. Another strategy would be providing eco passes or transit passes for the people that are working in this area. Those are two great strategies that really help encourage those uses of those active modes. So we'll be looking at those strategies, and then also identifying pricing for parking, so that we make sure that that we've got that number set up correctly, so that people can still park in this area. They can drive to this area, but it might come with a price. We don't know. We don't know that yet. I do want to say that this is a DRCOG funded project, and thank you for the letter of support that you guys had written for this. It most likely helped so that we were able to get the funding for it. Right now, we're working on an IGA between DRCOG, RTD, and the city so that we can get this scope really nailed down. And an RFP is, the intent is to get an RFP out for this so that we can hire a consultant to do the technical work for us. And then at the very end, we're going to be identifying financing strategies so that we can build the parking structure as well. We'll have a strategic outreach associated with this plan. We'll most likely coordinate with Erica and the NWC-CAC town halls in order to keep the public up to speed on what's going on. We'll put together a technical advisory group to help with identifying some of those strategies that will work for the area and can work for the area. We'll do updates to the Citizen Advisory Committee as well throughout the process so that you guys know what's going on during the study process. And we'll have project team meetings that'll be pretty consistent, probably every other week, as we flush through the analysis and all the work that we're going to be doing. I mentioned just briefly the NDCC Mobility Master Plan. That's a plan that really is tying together all the connectivity recommendations in the area, identifying how much right-of-way we're going to need for some of these improvements, identifying what kind of bicycle facility, if there are bicycle facilities identified, identifying how wide sidewalks need to be, that kind of thing, to put some more teeth to some of those recommendations. We have a consultant already chosen for that process. And we're just waiting for some signatures. That project is going to be kicking off next month, and it'll be about a 12-month process for that area-wide mobility master plan. This parking study, we believe, will be kicking off sometime this summer by the time we get the RFP out and get a consultant selected and underway. And then about the same time, there's going to be a visioning project that will be happening as a part of Washington Street corridor, which will be very similar. If any of you were, I know a few of you were involved in the Brighton Boulevard corridor visioning process. It will be very similar to that, where we'll kind of tee that project up to identify how much that project is going to cost based on whatever improvements are going to happen along Washington Street. So that'll be kicking off this summer as well, and that'll take us into 2017. We believe that one will be about an 18-month process. The parking plan will probably be a 9 to 12-month process. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Vern?
Who goes
Right on
first?
it.
Vern.
Vernon.
Vern.
I guess one of my main questions is as you're talking about the traffic studies and traffic flows, do you have any kind of, in this, are you going to be studying the aspect of these new connectivity points going into the Globeville area and what kind of volume that's going to be there going into that full area throughout?
Yes. So as a part of the master mobility plan, we'll be looking at what we call in the industry a travel shed analysis, which will be high level, but it'll be identifying the daily volumes based on the new connections in the plans. So yes, we will be doing an analysis.
Will that projection also be based on the activities that the stop show is having? Obviously, throughout the time of the year, it's going to fluctuate.
It's going to fluctuate, and it is not going to get into the detail of events. So there will need to be some sort of event plan that will happen associated with the stop show.
And then all this is going to run in conjunction with So the study of the National Western, is this only for the National Western, or does this take you all the way through to where you'd be going into either I-25 and I-70?
So the study for National Western Center is really associated with parking and identifying how much parking we're going to need for National Western Center. The master mobility study is going to be that larger overarching study that will pull in the National Western Center as well. So we'll have the mobility study, and then we're going to have the National Western Center parking study.
Okay, but the mobility study, is it going to just go with the boundaries of National Western, or is it going to take it all the way out to the highway? Because, you know, these people are going to be coming out of the National Western and then going into the, you know, the highway points.
Yep.
And so I'm just kind of curious on, is that going to encompass all of that?
Yeah, the national, let's see, let me get back to my slide. So we are going to be looking at the whole travel shed for NWC-CAC, which will include I-70, it'll take you out to I-25, and it'll be a travel shed analysis for this whole area.
I think they'll also be looking at I-76 as well.
There's another study that Commerce City is leading called the Industrial Zone Study that the City of Denver and I will be a part of, and that is going to cover I-76. So these studies will be coordinating. Yeah, we will be working together.
So, Emily, I think that the Elyria-Swansea-Globeville is going to be highly impacted by this development and the I-70 development. And I just would like to say that it is absolutely vital that continuous and deep involvement of these residents in these decisions. I just want to say that at last night's meeting for the stormwater project, there was a lot of frustration expressed because the major decisions were for that project were already made without us. And that's the first project out of the gate, and many people are very frustrated about this. And that we need to be involved. We don't want, like they did with stormwater, where you got it all made, everything planned, and then you come to us and you show us what you've got planned, and we don't understand why decisions were made. I think that you need to have like a series of meetings. I mean, we need to be involved at every step of the way, because this is a major, major impact, especially regarding I-70.
Yeah. And I-70, I will tell you guys, I-70 is separate and is running on its own course. So we are coordinating with I-70, and we know what's going on with CDOT. But I want to keep the I-70 conversations associated with CDOT and what CDOT is doing with I-70. We'll be pulling the information into our mobility plan. But I do hear what you're saying regarding bringing the public along with us as we undertake these major studies. The intent is really to take all the connectivity that everybody has had so much input on, and then identify how much traffic we're going to be seeing in and around this area, whether it's pedestrian, vehicular, or bicycle traffic or transit traffic. So it's really looking at it from a person trips standpoint.
Nola.
I have 4 questions. I'm going to just say them all, and then you can go for it. Who's doing the mobility study, the master one?
The consultant on board right now is HDR. And we'll be kicking off, we're just waiting for signatures. I keep thinking it's going to be this week or next week, but.
Okay. You're aware, are you looking at all at the RTD routes and that they all move north-south and there's no east-west connectivity in the RTD routes currently?
Transit will be a part of what we are analyzing as a part of this.
Okay, because that's a big, I mean, for people that want to go in between Globeville and Elyria-Swansea, we can't do that if you ride the bus.
Okay.
Good point.
I had a question about I-72. I mean, construction and getting around, I mean, assuming that this project moves forward, you know, the construction period, 5 years, is going to be a nightmare for transit. and getting around. So just, I don't know if you're considering that. And then my last question is how the master study is connected to the 47th in York study.
Okay, well, the CDOT construction, again, we're coordinating. That will be CDOT that will come in with their phasing plan and their traffic control plans. So they will, that's separate, but we are working as a transportation department with CDOT right now. Once they've identified the selected consultants for I-70, there'll be a lot more information coming regarding phasing and construction. But I don't have that information right now. And then 47th in York, yes, we are coordinating with the 47th in York activities, as well as the 40th in Colorado activities. There's a next step study going on right now with 40th in Colorado. So right now we're coordinating very closely with their consultants, those consultants, I should say.
AE? I'm sorry, were you done with your questions?
Well, just,
Oh, wait, yeah,
you're saying we, meaning NDCC? Or
Yes,
will the master plan be?
I'm a part of Public Works Transportation. So I have this weird role of being in NDCC, but I'm also in Public Works Transportation. So I'm involved in all those conversations in those meetings.
So this is a good follow-up to what Noah said. The triage concept of dealing with the coordinating the construction and moving forward, I just want to encourage the timeline, the sensitivity of the timeline with that, because we don't know what's going to unfold there. The scoping, just to reemphasize, there was some discussion when Eric presented about, I hope from the very beginning the entire city can be looked at with our, as a potential, I don't know what, a partnership parking space, the model of, instead of building parking up here, using this mobility, shuttles, circulator buses, anything to create from the beginning, starting from a commitment. And I hear it a little bit, but just we'd start from a commitment that it's like saying we're not going to let the floodwaters rise in the same way, so we're not going to let the traffic rise. I hear parking, 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 and I'm glad to hear the mobility study, but if we could draw that line and say we're not going to let it exceed this volume in any case, I would feel that to be a commitment to the neighborhoods in a way that is pretty revolutionary. So
yeah, that's a great point. One of the things that we will be looking at are shared parking opportunities. There's some shared parking that's already happening now with the stock show at the Coors Field parking garage at 27th and Blake.
right.
And so we're going to be identifying other parking opportunities that we could connect via a shuttle system or something like that. It is one of the innovative strategies that we do need to be looking at.
So early on in the process, it would be great if there was a citywide map with the maximum potential with highlighted for us in the tradition of a very early conversation, so that as that, and that we can know who those partners would be, and we can all get very creative with that.
Yeah.
Mickey?
With regard to the parking at Coors Field parking, is that going to be some kind of permanent relationship? I mean, right now, it's stock show parking, and the rest of the year, it doesn't seem to happen. I think it's important that we work out some arrangements so that parking is available whenever the stadium isn't fully using it. Is something planned to make that happen?
Yeah, and Tracy, you might be able to talk to this a little bit more than I can, but I do know that Rhino is initiating a parking study that
Yes,
will also be looking at those shared parking opportunities.
Yeah, we're as part of the new business improvement district, we have some funds, and we're going to put out an RFP to do a parking study of Rhino specifically, and some of that is utilizing some of that parking at Coors Field, because you're right, it's pretty much empty pretty much most of the time. So that's what I was going to ask you, Emily, if you're talking with Jamie, if we could kind of collaborate on that whole thing to figure out those questions. And those
Yes,
answers.
in fact, I'll be at the Rhino bid meeting on Tuesday.
Okay, great.
To talk to them about what we're doing and hopefully start coordinating what the Arts District is doing as well.
The reason I'm raising that is there's always been this kind of loose relationship, but the city has been reluctant to really get involved and say, we're behind this, and it ends up being kind of a time-to-time negotiation. So I think to the extent that the influence of the city and some commitment from the stadium as to how this might work would be important. And the other question is, you know, with regard to I-70, to say that that we have to deal with CDOT. I mean, Denver is our representative. It's in Denver. I don't know, you know, we attend enough meetings all the way through. We'd like to know that if you're going to be the person that you can represent us in terms of dealing with CDOT, to have a separate meeting is not really acceptable.
I appreciate that. I live in Denver as well, and I know how hard it is to go to meetings at night, and I can appreciate that. I do know that there is a lot of coordination that's happening between Public Works and CDOT today, and I have started to get my feet wet with those conversations.
Okay, can I just make an observation here before you go any further, maybe, because first of all, I think if we're going to have this discussion, we ought to bring in Leslie Thomas or Diane Barrett. They are actually sitting on the EOC with CDOT and technical assistance, so I don't want to put, I think it's unfair to put Emily in a position for her to be told to go represent something where people who are appointees above the mayor are sitting in committees or officially representing the city.
We're not asking her to deal with CDOT. We're asking when we have issues that they come through the city of Denver, and that individually we don't have to go to a CDOT meeting. We could go to somebody from Denver, and she can deal with Diane and Barrett and all of those people.
Well, and those are employees of the city and county of Denver and appointees of the mayor. What I'm saying is, I think what we ought to do is bring in those people who are appointees. I hear you about not having to go to a CDOT meeting. I'm just saying we ought to bring in the people who are actually sitting on committees that are voting on this stuff.
However you do it. I mean, this is the representative we have here today, and I'm suggesting that we have a more direct contact with the city.
And I think that's fair. I just don't want to put Emily in an awkward position to go up the food chain higher than she.
I appreciate it, and I think maybe what we could do is bring in Steve Coggins, who's our representative for the city, to talk and bring the CAC up to speed.
Or Leslie.
Or Leslie, yes.
She's the city engineer, and she sits on the technical committee.
I also want to make sure that we do it. I mean, we have a lot to tackle related to National Western with this group. And I agree that it's great for us to bring Steve in to give an update, but if we start focusing on CDOT, which I agree is a whole another group and set of issues, if we start focusing on that within the CAC, the National Western Center CAC, we will end up diverting our attention away from what it is our duty to be doing. I totally hear you, Mickey. I know it's a frustration for us all, especially when it comes to communication with CDOT, which has gotten better, but is still challenging. But if we start focusing on that here, we're not going to have time to focus on National Western, which is only going to get busier and busier.
John.
One question.
Oh, sorry, Dave. Sorry, John. Dave had a second.
Now, getting back to the 41st Avenue stop, it comes on board in fall, February.
That's right. The fall, it should be coming online in September.
Well, we need to put the people who are actually voting on this stuff.
The connectivity,
I mean,
since we're the first ones coming online, it is in Global. And I was on that committee, and we were trying to get recognized as a gold line community, which for some odd reason they wouldn't. We expected to do that. Now, are you going to work on our connectivity first? Because we're coming online first, or are you going to last?
I can't say anybody's first or last right now. The mobility master plan is going to flush through all of these recommendations.
And how can one of us get on this committee?
There will be a public process associated with it. You will be involved.
Now, the other thing, and I hate to go back to CDOT, years ago, the city took out our bicycle pedestrian tunnel under I-70. In our plan, we want it back in.
Right on.
You know, and we need, to me, safety is first and foremost. And we have no safety in Globeville.
Yeah.
Or Swansea either.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, it's a very unsafe and unhealthy neighborhood to live in. And I think in this process, we have to look at the safety first.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
John?
Yeah, I got a couple things, but I don't want to belabor the point now. Be forewarned on Washington Street, because Drew's nice, and he said things, and when it gets down to the brass tacks, there's a potential there for not being nice. So
That'll be your job.
And you need to include people on Washington Street and whatever. We have no confidence in Public Works, to be blunt about it.
Okay.
And you seem like a nice person, and I know you're sincere in what you're doing, but please be forewarned. Because what's happening now on Washington Street has a lot of people upset and excuse my language, but peed off.
Yeah.
And you know, we want to progress with this thing. We don't want to get bogged down haggling and hassling with the city departments, you know, but.
Yeah, the idea of the visioning process is to have a pretty heavy involvement with the
It hasn't happened so far, though.
Well,
And they're far along on it.
I'm sure it hasn't
Okay.
happened. And we haven't started this project yet. We're still working on the scope. It should be online this summer. So you'll hopefully be starting to hear more and more and more about Washington come this summer.
Well, we don't just want to hear, we want to have some say-so.
Yeah, and you will,
Okay,
and
okay.
you will be involved.
Thank you.
So a little bit more on Washington. The NDC, so we may have a natural split of focus coming right now because the NDCC has to remain vigilant for the integration of the neighborhood plans as the NWC takes on some autonomy. And I think some of this can be handled. And that's what, I put a question to Kelly when she said, I don't know what she just said, but then other people in the city said, oh, I know what she said when I learned that he was going to go to NWC. And are we still going to have the NDCC as our, you know, as an advocacy overview? And on Washington Street, I cringe when I hear an equivalency, the Washington Street corridor and the Brighton Street corridor. That is a neighborhood with an interior. And I'm really concerned because the Urban Land Institute study hasn't been issued yet. There was a lot of good input into that, and I don't feel comfortable on behalf of Globeville as a neighborhood that has an organism that it's not just the Washington. Can we be careful? We need to, and this has to do with staying in touch with the neighborhood as a whole. I think anything that's talked about in the neighborhood, whether it's Washington Street or East 45th, which is a traditional main street, a smattering of businesses throughout, that is a neighborhood that it's an organism. It's not just the Washington Street corridor. And there was a lot of feelings and concepts expressed during that Urban Land Institute panel. I think some people here participated, and it needs to be brought to the surface. Because we need you know what I'm saying? I don't know.
Yeah, and I don't mean to say that Washington is similar to Brighton. It will go through a similar visioning process that Brighton went through. By no means does it mean that it's going to look like Brighton.
I'm not saying anything bad about Brighton either. I'm just talking about the organism of the neighborhood is got to be the centerpiece, and Washington is there.
The ULI study is the basis of which we're going to kick off the Washington Street corridor study. So
when are we going to see that report?
It's in its final draft. It's in its final version. I know that the city had provided ULI with some minor comments just last week. So that should be finalized, hopefully, within the next few weeks.
Okay, any other additional questions for Emily so we can keep moving on this stuff? Anybody on this? Okay, great. Barbara.
All right. Hi, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Barbara Frommel. I'm with NWC-CAC. And I'm here to give an update about the historic resources work that we're doing at the National Western. And most of what I'm going to talk about today is related to the stadium arena, and which is envisioned to become a public market in the new National Western Center redevelopment. So I think I've been here a couple of times in the past going over kind of the overview of what we're doing and some of the details of the work. I think I mentioned that we are going to be seeking state historical funds to help us to support historic structure assessment of the building. Is everyone familiar with the Stadium Arena? Yeah, it's a beautiful building. So it needs to be unburied, freed of its attached expo hall and stadium hall that surround it. So the first step in doing that is a historic structure assessment and essentially an economic feasibility study or kind of a business case analysis about the public market, and really to test what is the feasibility of realizing this vision of a public market, in both in terms of the structural integrity of the building and the historic rehabilitation of the building, as well as from a market perspective and a financial perspective. And so that's what I'm passing out today, is the scope of work for that effort. It's a draft. We would love your feedback on it. And then next time, next meeting, which is February, I'm assuming, I will have a draft of our grant application for you to review. And the application is due on April 1st. So we've got plenty of time to get feedback from you all on this and make sure that you think we're approaching this study appropriately. And we would love to have a letter of support from the CAC and from some kind of the food-based organizations in the neighborhood, some residents. The State Historical Fund does not like to see form letters of support. They've asked that we be very creative in how we show support for this. So I'd love to hear your ideas on how we can do that creatively. And I'll probably reach out to several of you as individuals to get your ideas, but if you have thoughts, please feel free to contact me on that. We're not going to go through this in detail, but I can tell you kind of the three basic scope items of this study right now as we envision it happening.
John, did you not get one? Liz has extras.
As I mentioned, the actual historic structure assessment and the economic feasibility study. Also, we anticipate forming a public market advisory group. And that would be made up of folks who are local historic preservation leaders, so they can help guide the process from the historic preservation perspective, but also people like restaurant owners and folks who are working on food issues in the community currently. We'd love to have members of the CAC on that group. Definitely our National Western Center partners, Kobe. And really the purpose of this group would be to help guide the process and provide all the technical expertise from both a historic preservation perspective, but also from a food, retail perspective, and ultimately, if this public market idea seems to be panning out and we're getting a lot of support for it and we think it's going to move forward, we would love that group to help be the champions of the project and help us really figure out how to do it. How to operate this. Who's going to be the operator? It's not going to be the city. So what does that look like? So that, I think, is a really great way for you guys to get engaged and involved in the project if you're interested. So definitely take a look at that section and how we have written it up, and give us your feedback if you have some. A note on the economic feasibility analysis: this isn't your standard market study. We're not asking, is it feasible? We're asking, how can we make this use of this building feasible? And so we've done some research on public markets in other cities, and we've spoken to national experts, and we know that it's kind of difficult to make these public markets operate in the black. It's very possible that that use in and of itself will not be financially feasible, but maybe there are some other complementary uses that could happen in the building that will generate revenues that would offset any losses of the public market. So the building itself is, once it's restored, it will be a really fantastic venue. It could be used as an event center, and that is something that could generate enough revenues that might be able to help the public market out when, if it's not generating enough revenue. So those are the kinds of things that we'll be looking at. We'll be coming up with a preferred development program. So, what are those complementary uses? How much square footage does each need? We'll get an estimate on both the capital costs for this project as well as operating costs. And ultimately result in a business plan. It'll look at governance structures, cash flow models, really everything that we'll need in order to take this to funders essentially and say, hey, can you help support this project? So any questions on this scope of work kind of at a high level? I'd love for you guys to read this and you can give me comments either on this or I'll also send it out via email so you can get
So Dave, Drew, and John. And Leanna. Dave.
When you redo the old building, the 1909 building, are you taking out seating and everything now?
Right now, a lot of the seating will likely have to go based on our preliminary studies. However, it's an important feature of the building. It's an important character-defining feature, and so I think the way that the master plan envisioned it is leaving a section of the seating, and we don't know where or what that means yet, but a section of the seating would remain, and then it could be continued to be used for like showing the champion steer during the stock show. So I think all of us are in agreement that that seating is really important, and that it's a piece of the building that we would want to showcase as part of the rehabilitation. And it'll be determined in the design process which section of the seating stays, how much of it. Yeah, so we don't have all those details figured out yet.
So now you say you can use it as renting it out for weddings and whatever.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on the phone with the Milwaukee Public Market, which was a new building that was built about 15 years ago. And they built it, and it almost went belly up. Within 2 years, it was financially unviable. And they went through a whole process of figuring out how we're going to make this work, because the revenues generated by renting out the stalls for individual vendors to sell their wares wasn't enough to support the operations of the building. And what they figured out was there was a huge market for weddings. So they're now holding, I think, something like 200 events in that building a year, and it generates, like, do you know about this one? Yeah, it generates a couple $100,000 of net revenues that offset the rents for the vendors, so that it makes everything work. The vendors can afford to be there, and they can afford to operate the building, and it's like the hottest spot in Milwaukee for weddings.
Okay, cool. No.
Drew?
Yeah, I think Drew was.
Drew, John, then Leanna.
Just quickly, there are currently no funds to really rehabilitate or anything, so we have to find. Okay.
Yep, this is considered part of phase 3 of the National Western build-out, and
Which is
it
not
is
funded.
not currently funded. However, there are a lot of funds that we can access, both from the historic preservation perspective as well as the public market perspective. And so we think that it's a really great candidate for partnerships moving forward, and we'll be looking into all those opportunities.
Who's next?
John?
I have some specific question, and maybe you can answer it now. Your advisory group, and yeah, I think you're right on in getting some of that, except you lack one thing.
Okay.
Real people. You know,
Should
there's
I
a
write
group.
that? I'll write that in there, real
Yeah,
people.
there's a group in this neighborhood of women that are struggling, and they're looking, they need a lot of help. And they're looking for somehow, some way to peddle their wares. And they have a lot of them, and they're good at what they do. They're micro, they're below micro, you know, but you don't have anyone like that in this group. And I would be brash and say I insist that you have
Absolutely. We would love to
a
have them.
real person, common person,
Yeah.
a regular resident person.
Well, we have representatives, or with GES community residents, small businesses, small business owners, so I think that's how we were
Yeah, but they have another agenda other than what I'm talking about.
She's talking about the small.
Yeah, we would like to have them. Now,
He just wants food at the meeting.
A very important goal of this public market is that it benefits the community, both by.
He said it in better words than I can.
What's that?
You need people to make it work.
Absolutely.
You need people to bring money and so,
Real people.
thank you.
Liliana?
But just, John took some of my comments, but also just a little bit more detail about how the advisory working group is going to be developed and selection and who's chosen, et cetera.
You know, we don't have that detail in here. I think in our scoping of it, the farthest we've gotten is to say that, first of all, we anticipate this being about a 7-month study. Of course, after this, the work will continue. But I think we anticipated there being a meeting once a month. And then this description kind of says who are the groups of people we would want on the committee, and that's as far as we've gotten. So if you have thoughts, please let us know. We really haven't decided any of that. And then let me tell you the timing of this. We applied for the grant April 1st. We'll find out August 1st if we're awarded. And this project doesn't happen without the grant. So we really hope we win it. And we anticipate the work starting in the fall. And so there's plenty of time to figure out those details.
What's the title of the grant?
It's the State Historical Fund competitive grant. And the grant itself is focused on really the historic preservation side of this, not as much on the market, the public market side of this. So you'll see when it's time to review the grant application that a lot of that language is really focused more on preservation than.
And then, sorry, second question. So I know that you've looked at some of the larger public markets as well as some of the smaller ones that are happening in Denver that aren't very culturally responsive to the neighborhood, and so wondering about what your research looks like internationally to Latin American markets and how they operate and how they run and how we can have more of that feel to be more reflective of the community. And I know it's in here.
Well,
I mean, it's noted to be more.
We've captured. I think we've probably done an okay job capturing that, but I think that's a really good point. And so if you read through this and you think we haven't done a good job or you have comment or suggestions, but some of on the public market side for the consultant team that we would be looking for with this, we really want to access people who are experts, national and international experts in public markets. There's nobody in Denver who knows how to do this because we don't have this yet.
Don't get the people from the city he was talking about, though.
Do you have Milwaukee?
Yeah.
Well,
I'm sure they had experts too.
There's the new crowd that know it really well.
So for instance, one of the consultants we've talked with just got back from Cuba. As soon as it was okay to go to Cuba, he traveled there and studied the public markets there and talked to the people and learned how their whole system works because it's untouched and it's really unique. And so we can do our best to kind of study that stuff online, but we will really rely on international students.
as someone
Buy me
who's,
a plane ticket and
I know, I'm like, I wanna
so
go.
I just want you to know that someone who's been there, as somebody who's from there, do not pattern your food market processes on the Cuban government process of food manipulation, okay? So I'm just putting it out there, all right? So, yeah, Katie.
For the letters of support, I bet a lot of people would be willing to write something.
Of course, I just found out today that Cubans aren't considered
Maybe
Hispanics,
having, like a
according to Chris
half-page
Matthews.
or full page of like some prompts, things that are useful in those types of letters, but so you don't have to sit down and get the speaker and go, oh, because that's intimidating.
Right.
But if you have like in the first paragraph, describe this, second maybe something like this,
Okay.
it's a lot more.
Do you think people would be willing to do handwritten? Even if it's just really short?
Oh, yeah.
I'm excited for a public market in my neighborhood because, or I'm excited to, okay. Because that kind of thing I think would go really well, and I mean, it could be English or Spanish, so. I mean,
That's actually good politics.
What's the timing of those letters that you want them by? That's really important.
You know, we would need them in March, so we have time, and I'll talk more in detail about that at the next meeting. And then I have two more things I wanted to talk about, so I don't know if there are any more questions on the public market.
Yeah, I think there were like 3.
I don't want to rush anybody, but I also just don't want to take up too much
I think I got
time.
everybody on this side, AE, so you were next.
I just want to reinforce the vision.
Oh, Albus, I'm sorry, Albus.
Oh, okay. The National Western Center's relationship to the incubation of business, the agricultural research, the center of gravity, what the sum of the parts are here with this. I'm very concerned about it in a very, let's stay excited and keep it as part of this way. Because we don't have the models for this in what we're doing here. And so I just want to be really careful that we don't isolate that business plan from the business plan of the National Western Center itself. That we remember that we've got this whole strategic thing. I think you've done an amazing job posing questions here of the territory we have to discover. But I don't want to constrain it. I don't want us to default to the usual.
Right.
And I want to look at it in terms of free market, not so much subsidized and trying to find a model like that. And I know that's part of the big discussion.
Could you just do me a favor and read through this, and if you think there's a
Oh,
way
yeah.
to weave that language in there,
Sure.
then we'd be
Well,
happy to
everybody will,
include
yes.
it.
Let me just say something real quick. Number one, Granville Island in Vancouver.
Right, that's what I was going to say also.
The number one, I mean, it's an incredible market, and to folks, Liliana and John's point, markets only work when it's from the grassroots up. They only work when it's really from the community. So they have an incredible model, and that's an international model. They got all kind of countries represented, and it's incredible. And then two, are you going to talk about Landmark? Because,
Yes, that's the next thing.
Let her get to her point,
So
Albus.
in order to be eligible for this grant, the building must be a historic landmark. And so we are seeking local landmark designation. We're working very carefully with the property owners. The property owners are Western Stock Show Association in the city. We're also working carefully with CSU because CSU will be building their agricultural center on the same parcel. We want to make sure that everyone understands what it means to have a local landmark, have this building be a local landmark, and understand what the implications are for future development. And I have to say those discussions are going pretty well right now. So I'm glad about that. We're also working very closely with community planning and development, landmark preservation staff. And they staff the Landmark Preservation Commission, who ultimately needs to make the decision or the recommendation to City Council about whether or not this designation goes through. So all that is going very well to date, and we're having a meeting with the Stock Show Association next week to kind of finalize their thumbs up on the application. And that application will be submitted on February 12th. Assuming everybody's comfortable with it, and that will start a 30-day public review process. And then the Landmark Preservation Commission public hearing is on March 15th.
When does it come to city council?
City council, let me pull that up.
Sometime in April.
Yes.
I guess the point is, it'd be great to have some representation in this room before city council. We typically don't get good feeling, supportive landmark hearings.
Well, just not in the last little bit.
Yeah.
Yes,
We've had a lot of contentious landmark hearings, and this is a good, everybody's on board with it. It's gonna be great, so.
So April 11th is first reading, April 18th is the public hearing.
Great.
So, yeah, again, both at the Landmark Preservation Commission meeting and the public hearing at City Council, it'd be great to have representation. And then Maria had asked about the Landmark Preservation Commission tour.
Correct.
We do have a date for that. It's February 26th, Friday, February 26th at 11:30.
So it's the day after our next meeting.
Yes, so you all are invited to that. It'll be a walking tour, unless someone
At the arena.
At the arena. Sorry?
I'll bring my
Of
hoverboard.
the arena and really all of the historic features of the site. So a good bit of walking. So if somebody wants us to figure out a bus or a shuttle, we can do that as well. But right now we're envisioning it as a walking tour.
Well, you're doing the exchange building also though, right?
Yes, because with, if you remember, we're also doing a comprehensive history of the site.
Area.
And I didn't not talk about that too much tonight because it's, we have time to talk about that in the next couple of months. But, so this is really to educate the LPC about everything we're doing, not just the
Well,
arena.
if you need, I mean, now, obviously, since Talk Show is not in, if you need a bus, if you think it would make more sense to do something more extensive, I'm sure we can arrange a bus from the Stock Show.
Okay. What do you guys think? Is it?
Yeah, well, you had a bus the last time.
Right.
Okay, we can manage
We have
that.
buses
So then
of all sizes.
I imagine it would
Just because
be-
walking to and from the exchange building from the Stock Show and all the stuff that's going on is not the cleanest straight shot right now.
It's true, yeah.
Yeah, and
So
we
we'll
should-
have it leave downtown, stop here.
No, we
Can
probably
we fit
just-
everybody?
No,
We'll
I
just
think we
start
should do it starting here.
from here.
From, like, pick up in front of the hall.
Most of the residents are here, so they wouldn't go downtown for it, so we'll just have a bus waiting for whenever you guys meet. That's how we did the council, tour is, to
Okay,
so.
so we'll do that.
So that's open to anyone that wants to come?
Anybody who wants to come.
Can we coordinate?
Why don't we do-
Spanish interpretation?
We'll try.
I mean,
Yeah.
we can pay.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we put out the notice and have everybody who wants to come to RSVP? First of all, I'll have to have a count to see which bus we get at the Stock Show, whether it's the bigger bus or the smaller buses, okay? And be able to do that, and then that way we can see.
Well, and if we had we could use the Pepino here and go just to the Stock Show, bring a crew.
Use the what?
The pickle bus, the little green bus, the
Oh.
Focus Points bus.
Oh. Pickle bus.
You don't know the Pepino?
I'll work with Maria, I'll work with you on those details.
Yeah,
That's
Liz,
like,
Liz and I and you will work on this. The other thing we need, though, is since you've got, that I did ask last time when we had the workshop, is, or your presentation, is the timing. We'd like to get the draft of the application out to this committee as quickly as you have it available.
Okay.
So,
I talked to our team about it, and the landmark preservation staff was not thrilled with the idea of sending that out before we submit it to LPC.
that's fine, but you can submit it to LPC, but we'd like to have it as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'll
And
send
not
it.
have it like 2 days before the hearing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I'll make sure you guys get it the same day.
right,
that-
once you submit it, I'm fine with not, I know they have to submit it and they want it, but we'd just like to be able to get it so we can circulate it to everybody.
Yep, okay, I will do that.
John?
And then lastly, I just wanted to mention that a couple months ago, Blake Angelo, who's the food systems coordinator with Denver Office of Economic Development, contacted me and a few of the food leaders in the community up here about applying for an opportunity with the EPA called Local Food, Local Places. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. It's essentially a technical assistance grant, and we kind of decided, we had 48 hours to decide and decided to throw our hat into the ring. and basically applied for technical assistance related to developing community food systems and economic opportunities related to food in GES, and specifically, how can the National Western Center help with tackling those issues in the community. And so we just found out 2 days ago that Denver received this grant, and that it is, we are a 2016 community partner with the EPA, and this is something that's administered by the EPA, but it is sponsored by several federal agencies, including the CDC and Department of Transportation and the White House. And so I don't really have a lot of details, and I don't really understand fully what this means yet, because we just found out 2 days ago. I think it's probably a really good opportunity for the community. It kind of allows us to establish a forum to have this discussion about how the National Western Center can benefit the communities, and really have it be an inclusive process that's driven by the community. So Blake Angelo will be leading that up. Kobe and Nola so far, and Jocelyn were helped review the grant application, and we're going to work with Blake on next steps, and I think he or one of us will get back to you on the details of how you all can be involved. I don't know those.
Well, should we have Blake on the agenda for the next meeting and have him present what the grant does and where the input is? And
It's not a grant, it's technical assistance.
Yeah,
I want to make sure
there's
that's
there's no money flowing through anything. So what it means is the EPA has hired some consultants already. They're already on board, and the community gets to determine what sort of outcomes it wants to achieve with this. And there will be some, like a day-long workshop or a day-and-a-half-long workshop to have this discussion. And then there will be a report submitted. So, but I think that's a good idea. We can.
AE?
So I met really briefly with Blake after this, because I met with Gretchen. Is that your name?
Barb.
Wait, that doesn't seem right. A little bit when this came on the table, and there's some really unformed elements to this yet, but there's a potential that the National Western Center and the Citizens Advisory Committee could become a major. It can be a really participatory, and it doesn't have to be limited in this forum. And I want us to be very careful, because I really do, and I hate being in this position, but I really want this to not. I don't want us to default to existing models. This is a gray area type of thing. It's just technical assistance, but it's kind of our first opportunity, and many that we need to develop to set how we talk to each other without influencing or defaulting to different models. So, and I'm not being intentionally vague, but we have nonprofit types of models, we have free enterprise, we have business incubation, and we have enterprises all over Denver that are striving to be part of the food industry. So, I've been advocating for a long time to have Blake come, and I fully support him coming. And I'd like you to maybe talk about, is this the right time, this next meeting, if he can, or do we need to,
Well, since since this just got awarded 2 days ago, I mean, we'd like to know the timing. I mean, we'll leave it up to him, but we'll reach out to him as when he thinks, when to fit it when he thinks the timing's appropriate. But I think we need to put it out there.
Yeah, I agree.
I just have
John?
one question. From today, or the day before we go city council, do you see any impediments or obstacles or problems in the process?
On the designation?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I personally don't.
Okay.
All our conversations have been going really smoothly, and so far.
The next step is meeting with the National Western folks?
They've been meeting with the National
Okay.
Western.
Yes.
I don't think the National Western is going to be a problem. That has been from the get-go, that the 1909 arena would be landmarked and be worked at. I think the unknown, and I hear it's going well, is in fact the Stock Show Exchange building is in different hands than the National Western.
Yes, and that we're working on.
So it's
that's
good to
next,
go.
But the stadium arena, everyone seems to be on board, and it's a balance with the historic preservation community as well. I We're trying
I'm
to
sorry, what?
achieve both the goals of
It is,
rehabilitating
and
this
that's on like the
building
farm for $100. So it's owned
being
very privately.
respectful and showcasing the
And it's not
character
part of,
defining
the
features of
National
the
Western is
building,
not owned.
while
Yes,
also
it includes the
being as
the
flexible
exchange.
as possible with reuse
Yeah.
of the building. And so I think we've struck a really great balance in this application, in the development of the application. And we'll look to John, and he hasn't seen a draft of it yet either, but we look toward the expertise of these
So
guys.
everything looks good.
I think so.
And the livestock exchange building?
We haven't even started on that one yet.
You haven't?
And we really need to engage the property owner first and foremost, and we've done
And-
some of that, but
And the old Armor's office building?
same, we have
Same.
not started on that one.
Okay.
If you remember, we fast-tracked the stadium arena in order to be able to get our grant application in
Right.
time for the state historical fund.
Okay.
So that's why that
Free
one's
plan.
ahead, and the others are kind of pushed off until we get to this.
Drew?
So just remind me again, that can only come online as a public market when there has to be, right now, the stock show needs it, that building, so what building is it we have to build in order for that building to free up?
The exhibition.
I can answer that. So in order to, so the arena is used for horse shows.
Rodeo.
So, yeah, and so until the equestrian center
Okay.
is built, which is in phase 2, the livestock
Oh.
building and the equestrian center, those are both going to be built in phase 2. And remember, we're doing phase 1 and phase 2 in this first
Yeah.
build-out.
And you do have funds?
Yes.
Yes, and we have
Okay, so
funds
you-
for phase 1 and phase 2. So once the equestrian building is built, then the stadium arena is no longer needed.
Okay.
And once the livestock building is built, the barn that is the lower level of the Hall of Education, which the stadium arena is attached to, is no longer needed as well. So we can disconnect the two buildings. We can't tear down the Hall of Education because the upper floor is needed until the new expo hall is built.
Okay.
And that's not till phase 4. It's confusing.
But would that stop it from proceeding to be a
No,
public
but
market?
phase 3 will be, phase 3 is to disconnect the 1909 building from the Hall of Education and turn it into a public market.
Phase 3?
Phase 3.
Okay.
And then phase 4 is build the expo hall, and once we build the expo hall, then we can tear down the Hall of Education, which will be right next door.
But, so Eric, thanks. So correct me, is phase 3 is currently not funded?
Phase 3 is currently not.
Okay.
We got a grant.
You're funded through
Barb-
phase 2?
Barb got us a grant in order to do this study of the 1909 building.
Yeah.
So it's
Wait,
essentially.
applying for the
No, we're, sorry. I was using it in Dr.
I know.
Barb is going to win us a grant from the SHPO to do this study of the 1909 building, but the actual cost to rehabilitate is not yet funded.
Okay.
So conceivably, how many years is it before?
Phase 3?
Several.
So,
Well, in all fairness, it depends how the approaches come and what kind of involvement. I mean, the National Western is undertaking a $50 million capital campaign. We may be more successful than we think we're going to be. And there's also some interest from outside sources that have thought at times. I mean, I think there is continuing talk as there is a possibility that any of this could be a P3. And so I think it depends. I mean, I think you are correct. Public-private partnership.
Everybody knows what
Yeah, I mean, I think, Drew, you're correct that there's no funding for 3, but I think it's very difficult in situations like this to ascertain timing. The reality of life is that when the Anschutz Medical Campus was being built, everybody thought it was going to take 30 years, and it took 7. So I think that's a good analogy to projects that get undertaken, and then once you open up the Pandora's box, you don't know what's coming. You never know what's going to come at you.
And the market's very similar, so then the time value of money is in our favor, just like it was with the Anschutz campus. So we have to take advantage of those types of things
Low
to
interest rates.
move the project
Right.
along. Money's cheap right now to build, so.
I think our goal right now is to get all this preliminary work done.
Ready.
And build the momentum so that we can attract the funding, and as soon as we're ready, hit the go button, and then we'll have it done. So,
But we don't, at the same time, we don't want to promise a schedule.
Right, that's exactly right. We have to be conservative, but at the same time, don't be open to ideas. Okay, Mickey?
Barb, as a representative of the historic community, Globeville Landing is a 45-year-old park, which is about to be demolished under the proposed plan by the city. It was originally a park that was designed with Joe Shoemaker, was part of a series of parks. And I know Historic Denver and the history groups really don't get that involved in parks, but I would hope that you would look at that situation and weigh in to make sure that that park is not lost.
Well, we do get involved with parks. We're actually heavily involved with city parks, as Councilman Brooks can attest to.
Well, that's better.
Yeah, but you know, we can certainly look at that. I don't know what the proposed plan in terms of, we can talk about how that affects. Yeah.
And yeah, just for clarification, I'm not a historic preservation expert. I have to rely on our team members in landmark preservation and CPD and folks like John and the great folks at History Colorado to provide that expertise to what we're doing. I just keep the ball moving forward, and I kind of help those partnerships form. So I can't speak about Globeville Landing Park.
Okay, anything else for Barb? We need to keep moving here. It's getting to approach. Anything else? All right. Yeah, Barb will be back. Okay, Jake.
There you go. How's everybody? It's been a few months. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the campaign. Now that we're a few months past, to kind of summarize some of the work we did, but also talk about the election results. So I'll just hit on a couple things that we did as the campaign. First was our TV ads. You guys all probably saw them. Most people saw them 32 times, 6 weeks. And I'll talk a little bit more about the effect of these, but just so you kind of recall what they were. We had the steer kind of has this viral effect where he's popping around town, saloon, and newspaper. We got the endorsement from the Denver Post. We did some really cool stuff online with the steer, kind of made him a character, so that he was all over, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, in your email, you were seeing Laramie Longhorn telling you to go vote, kind of reiterating those messages. Made a few short videos, and then we did some cool statistics stuff to target these messages to people, so you're getting messages that appeal to you. And then outreach was our big effort. So we got 632 endorsements, which is huge. Looking back at some of the other ballot measure campaigns in the city, it's like half of that, a third of that. So we really put an emphasis on this, really making sure grass top leaders were with us from the start and not shifting away. We attended just about every neighborhood meeting that we could through those 4 or 5 months of the campaign. And then knocked on 62,000 doors. I think AE knocked on half of those. Made 33,000 phone calls. So kind of election day, we're almost 3 months back from that. Last April, we did some initial polling to figure out where we were on this. Started with 45%. Over the next couple months, really refined the ballot language to make sure that we had that list of issues or parts that got on the ballot language. That brought our support up to 60%. Stayed there in July and September, and then as soon as we went on TV, you started to see us get up to 65%. That's where we ended on election day. So all of this work, whether it's through getting the ballot, getting the measure on the ballot, selling it to the grass top leaders, knocking on doors, getting it our TV ads up and running, increased our support by 20%. It's crazy to do that in 6 months. So kind of where our support came from, we didn't lose a single precinct. We almost lost one by like 2 votes, but we pulled through in Southwest. In Fine District 9, we got our best, 72%.
Yeah, yay. District 9.
District 8, just east of there, we got 70% in Councilman Herndon's district. The toughest district for us was down here, District 2, but we still got 60% there, which is just amazing.
It's the old Ginny Fuzzy.
Better than Trump.
Better than.
What do you mean by tall?
Normally,
I don't even know who that is.
that's the more conservative part of town, so when you do a ballot measure involving taxes or stuff, you expect that to be hard. But 60% is great.
First election to win all precincts, do you guys know the history on that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oop, oop.
Come on, y'all!
So more District 9 here. So these are all the neighborhoods in District 9.
Wow.
And what our support there. So yeah, Global got 80% of the vote out of there. In Elyria, Swansea, we got 72%. That's not a huge difference. It's really like a couple dozen people. So 72% is really awesome. The one thing I think from the data is turnout was really consistent with 2011 in these three neighborhoods, about 26%. So that's why the CAC is so important. Just continue to engage people as like these projects start to develop, making sure people are good to come to the meetings and stuff. But these are really huge numbers everywhere in District 9. Really crushed it.
You know what, go back to the downtown. That's just an interesting, because a lot of people had struggles with the investment they're making down here, but still a significant number.
I think the convention center helped pull that out too.
Yeah. So this is one of my favorite charts. A little geeky. So each the dot are precinct, and the vertical is like our support. And then there's the Democratic registration or Republican registration. So this is us, measure 2C. Where it became more Democratic, we did just a little bit better, but not much. Still just did really well. But if you look at measure 2A, which was the College Matters campaign, they really relied on Democrats, right? But what hurt them was with Republicans. The more conservative a precinct became, their support just fell off. But for us, we didn't really lose a lot there. So the point is, we were really able to transcend party affiliation. We won everywhere, no matter if it was Republican, Democratic, or more unaffiliated there. We just really did well. And then there's a similar chart like this for age, which I didn't do tonight. But for us, it was really dependent on if you were an older precinct or a younger precinct. For 2A, if it was an older part of town, they would say no. But if it was a younger part of town, they said yes. So demographics, we didn't really rely on any to do well on election day. The turnout, just about 125,000 people voted. You see a lot of turnout coming from the southeast part of town, which is pretty typical in an off-year election. Increase of 14%, so 100,000 people from 2011. And kind of where that's coming from, the city's becoming a lot more unaffiliated. People just aren't really affiliating with the party anymore. It's also becoming a lot younger, so 2015, 40% of the voters were 18 to 49 years old. And 2011, it was just 36% of the vote. And then another cool thing is 45% of ballots were returned in the last 2 days. That's really, like, people are just returning their ballots a lot later because the city's becoming a lot younger. 57% of 18 to 49-year-olds voted in just the last 2 days. 29% of the voters over 65. I did,
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Any questions or anything? Good job.
Hey.
Well, on the late vote, just one real quick thing. On the late votes, going door to door in the last days, the stress of life in these neighborhoods does affect the return. It's just amazing the number of people that were scrambling around trying to find that wanted to vote. And I just think we have a precedent here to build on the engagement, though, and I just want to say that I think that we've got a lot of things that can be brought to the foreground because this was kind of a foundational push, and Jake did a great job. He's a great wonk with this stuff too. I never saw such clarity in trying to strategize while Chris was going crazy at the same time. But we do, for the turnout, there were many, many people that I talked to that regretted they got disorganized after this vote, and people were so that's for future reference.
Good point. Okay, thank you, Jake.
Thanks. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next issue, which is the National Western Center Citizens Advisory Committee membership. If you recall in our workshop, we talked about increasing, potentially looking at, there is some appetite to either increase and have some other members join this committee. So we asked you all to put the word out of people who wanted to potentially be members and to submit letters to us. You now have the 2 letters we've received from those 2 individuals. We put this on as a discussion item for today. I mean, I think there were some things that some of you guys wanted to think about is, you know, John, you had mentioned is that you didn't want to get too big. Do we arbitrarily choose a number that we can't go beyond, or that other issue, and where we want to go in terms of selecting it? It was not our intent that we make a decision tonight, because I actually, in my opinion, and Terrence and I talked about this, we think we ought to make another round. Now that this is right around the holidays, we put out the word around the holidays, all that area, I think we ought to go another month where we ask to see if there are other people who want to come forward to be able to do this now that people are now back in a sort of a normal routine and be able to communicate and advertise it. And then think through, there's a couple of things we also asked, is we asked people who wanted to, we encouraged people who wanted to be on the committee to at least attend 1 meeting, to understand what the meeting's all about, because I think before you decide whether you want to be on this committee, we wanted to make sure, thank you, David, whether you need to understand what it entails and the issues that we go through in that aspect. So with that, we're going to open it up to discussion and go from there.
Well, may I?
Yeah?
Okay. I'm a little disappointed in what you just said, because I distinctly remember standing up on my hind legs in October and saying, let's deal with it now. Get these people, they're interested, let's get them on board. And then sanity prevailed, and you said we have the election coming up, and I agreed, let's put it off to January, I thought it was going to be dealt with tonight.
That was not my impression from the workshop. I actually, I'm personally disappointed that we didn't get more interest.
Well, I would say to hell with them. Let's go with what we got and make work, do what we have to do with. We've been around 3 years. If people are not interested enough, come forward, or leave the door open, they can come in later. I don't.
Yeah, I don't think we have a defined, and I'm sorry I missed the last one, I don't think we have a defined, admission timeline, you can only get in between such and such.
Right.
Yeah. So if
That's not Iowa.
it's like, if other people wanted to, but I mean, I think I understand where you're coming from. To get the right mix, you can't rely on.
Well, our real focus, I want to remind everybody, the real focus was residents, okay? And, Jim, who's here, actually, and Clinica, we all know Clinica, both either Flossie or Jim have been sitting through a lot of these meetings, so I want to make sure. So as of right now, we only have 1 additional resident who has submitted a letter, which is Candy.
Well, Jim just as well be a resident. He spends his entire lifetime.
I understand. I understand. I just want to make sure that there's delineation here. AE?
So, I don't have necessarily any opposition to either one of these entities, because I have, these humans,
Individuals.
These individuals, these cosmic forces. I had a lengthy conversation with Marie, and I want it to be on the table, about how some of the focus that we don't have in terms of frameworking what we're bringing on. Obviously, definitely, the more residents, but we still haven't defined what it is that would enrich the CAC. I think once again, here we are at the end of a meeting that's over schedule already. And I think and I didn't understand from the last meeting, and I'm sorry, and I'm listening to the tape again, that that this was going to be a focused call. I felt like it was unresolved, but we just left one informal consensus, was that it would be a great idea if people came to a couple of the meetings to make sure it was a fit and what was the mutuality. And I didn't get any impression from that meeting, and that we were, because I'd love for us to have a document that opens a call up and for us to really figure out, because we've got a lot of people that aren't here tonight, we haven't fully, you know, I just feel like we're being a little bit too haphazard, and I don't want to but if, let's do a document that says we're doing this, if we're going to do an open call, and, anyway, so I somehow, I mean, I gave some itemizations of things that are really, you know, concise, related to the types of things to put in place that are protocols. How long should people expect to, you know, should we have a special meeting where people get to look at what the obligations are and what, you know, I mean, and we never have firmed these up a whole lot. Drew, please, the faces.
Well, what is your point, may I ask?
It's pretty clear, just listen, I think it's clear that we're talking about protocols and figuring out what we're inviting people in relationship to the whole process. So, and I, you know, and if we had a clear entry point with expectations, then more people might respond. We might get more because people know more what they're getting into.
May I again?
John.
When I was a youngster, I was very lucky. I had a teacher. Actually, he was a philosopher, and these words have stuck with me since a long time ago. And they're very simple. On the plains of hesitation lie the bleached bones of would-be victors who hesitated, and victory slipped through their fingers. You know, we've come a long way as a committee. We took the city literally by the horns and won an election that astounded a lot of people. And we did a lot of work on this. Everybody involved worked like hell. And some people smirked, but at the end, we didn't hesitate. The help we got, it was great. You know, it was a new one for me, technology that I didn't understand. But when it came down to the last couple of days, it was the door knocking that put us over, in addition to all the technical, the things that Jake was an expert at doing. At this point, we've got people that want to join this elite group in our neighborhood. And we are elite. Every one of us sits here, we're elite. And we've earned that. When I walk down Washington Street, people know what's going on. Because you talk to them, I talk to them, anyone else. Vern talks to them. We have people now that want in our group, and let's not hesitate. Let's not create more bleached bones on the plains of hesitation. Let's go forward with what we got. And other people want to come in, by all means, you know, we'll welcome them with open arms. And we can define as we go on, you know. We can't do the Sistine Chapel all over again. We're going to build a 10-year program for National Western, so let's get people help.
Armando?
Is there a motion on the table to get these two people in?
Wait a minute.
Okay, Drew?
Armando, Armando, I really love you, but you really shoot from the hip sometimes, and it's really, I would support either of these people, but I think we made we requested that they come to a meeting. I mean, Candy has not been to a meeting. I know Candy, she's great. I think she might be really good. And the same with the other one. I might support them, but I haven't seen them.
He's here. He's
Oh,
here.
sorry. Oh, Jim, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't read. That's great. So you kind of know what you're getting into. But I mean, Candy, I mean, maybe she comes and we accept her and then she decides, I don't want to be here. So come to the meeting and then we'll, you know, introduce yourself. And
Okay, let me just say, can we divorce a couple of things here? I don't like the word divorce, but anyway. AE and I did meet this week. I think she has some very good thoughts, and I agree that as the committee gets more complicated and issues get more complicated, that I think we need to have a little bit more structure and protocols. So at this point, what I want to also mention to you guys is, Liz, can you stand up? So Liz Adams, who most of you know because she worked with us on the campaign, has joined CRL as of 2 weeks ago. And she's going to be working with me and Terrence and Roger because we need more resources because things are moving really fast, okay, to be able to do that. We will commit to you that with the next agenda, we will send you a draft protocol of everything for you guys to all review prior to be able to do that. I would feel, John, more comfortable, and I appreciate Armando, and I know Jim's here, so I don't know, I don't want to put Jim in an awkward position. I would feel more comfortable if Candy came to a meeting.
Yeah.
Just so that she knows what is entailed. Huh? And she can introduce, I think we ought to have a time on the agenda where everybody...
Why should Jim pay for Candy's absence?
I did say, I used the word divorce, okay, but in all fairness to Candy, we didn't think we were going to make a decision tonight, so we did not reach out to Candy. Candy reached out right away to be able to do that. And I do think we ought to do a more broad-based, that you guys can disseminate of a call or whatever to get members. Again, we all agreed at the last time that the residents were a priority. We actually went through, if you recall, how many residents there were from Gloveville, how many residents there were from Elyria, and how many residents there were from Swansea. All right, so I just want to make sure that I refresh your memory on that and be able to do that. So, but let's make sure that you understand that we will commit to having all the protocol stuff done, and then, but I just want to make sure.
Sorry, so I appreciate that you're trying to do some of the legwork, but I would appreciate resident input on that process.
Oh, yeah.
Protocols are.
No, it's a draft. I'm not saying we're going to vote on it, so we will send you a draft, and we will talk to you guys all, put some draft stuff in there, send it out to you guys, and then still have an input. I'm not saying it's going to be final.
No.
Okay.
No, but I think even in the
Development, yes, we'll do that.
Someone that's interested from the CAC to be able
we'll do that.
to be part of that.
Yep,
Well, and I think
absolutely.
Before the draft is presented.
The email that Maria and Ralph forwarded, it has a lot of these things that it came from a resident, so yeah, the tradition.
We also have the document that you guys presented that is not a consensus document, we get that, but that you guys had some concern on, that's still a working document that we use there. So we still have that to work off of, okay? All right, so, David, yes?
Is this in the other section?
This has to do with the marijuana.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, wait, can we
Sorry.
finish this real quick?
Yeah, sorry.
I need direction, what do you guys?
I just want to acknowledge Jim for the letter that was very well crafted and very, well written as far as what Linica brings to the table and what the connections are. So I appreciate you making that case very clear for us.
We can separate the two, clinical organization, so. What do you guys want to do?
Why, I move that we accept Jim and do the
Right,
protocol.
maybe divorce the two people. Jim has been here, what do you want to do, or do you want to wait? Jim's not representing residents. Okay, so we could do a special call just for the residents piece to be able to do that, so.
Let's move forward.
What do you guys want to do?
I made a suggestion. I made a motion.
I second it.
And you just usually have discussion.
Right, we have discussion.
Parliamentarian.
Right, no, we got that. So, Drew.
Jim, do you just want to say a few words of why you want to be among this group? The letter's very good.
Sure.
But if you just,
we Clinica moved into Gloveville about 12 years ago. We felt it was a perfect fit for our mission and the population that we're serving, namely people who have very limited access to health services. And we moved in 12 years ago. It's been a perfect fit. 3 years ago, we moved into the old Elyria school. So we have our behavioral health and health promotion and administrative offices also in the Elyria neighborhood. So our goal is to be on the ground with the community and for the community. And so we feel not only are we providing high quality health services, we feel like we're part of the neighborhood revitalization as well. So we just feel like it's a great fit.
John?
I want to make a confession. I'm not a Baptist, but this is a public confession. Jim and I had a bad start 12 years ago. Judy Montero stuffed the Clinica Tepeyac down Globeville's throat. And we fought it tooth and nail. I consider Jim an adversary 12 years ago. And there was some really ruffled bad feelings, ruffled feathers with half a dozen people or more in the community. And we went down, we objected, we fought City Hall, we fought Judy Montero at the time. And that old saying, you can't fight City Hall, like hell you can't. We did. We didn't win, but we fought them. I made the decision and led the group to say, you know what, just let it go. Don't harbor any bad feelings. They got work to do, and I've got some philosophical disagreements about what they do, but it's needed. It's needed. Since then, I've done a turnaround, and I think times are different now. What they do needs to be done. I don't totally agree with it, but people need health care. And I would welcome Jim with open arms to this committee. And I would urge everyone here to be affirmative in accepting him on this committee at this point. We're no longer adversaries. I swallowed it hard, passed it out, move on. Let's get it going.
I just want to say, I'm glad you're alive, given how John just described the beginnings. But I did have an opportunity to meet with Jim and Flossie this afternoon. It was serendipitous around, and I didn't know that they had submitted a letter, but I kind of figured it out from something Jim said in an email when we set this meeting up. And I just want to say that I did put on the table all the concerns that I had talked to Marie about that are going to become part of the constructive structure of protocols we'll talk about. And I feel like Jim was very respectful of how the National Western Center vision transcends the individual differences we might have with programming in our different projects and that kind of thing. So I am comfortable with inviting approval of Clinica Tepeyac based on a feeling that they've come a long way in terms of really wanting to do Globeville, Elyria, Swansea centered program development with a new depth, and I feel like they've taken into consideration what's going on with the neighborhood plans, and I feel like they're responsive to contrasting ideas. It's like what I'll call a learning institution. I feel like we could have a good discussion with you guys about different ways of doing things. We won't be defaulting to the usual. We'll come up with something where the sum is greater than the parts. And you have been here, and you have been invested, and I think Clinic is about to break out in some new ways too. So I felt like we had a really open-minded conversation, and that any contrast in programming instincts we have will all be the richer for it. So I would support the separation of the two and invite us to approve.
All right. So, any other comments? Are we ready to vote? So, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Need to ask that. So, okay, Jim, welcome aboard. So, I want to clarify, because we have somebody here who may want to also be considered for a member. We will draft an open call that we'll get out. We'll circulate it to all of you guys. We will prioritize residents in the community, and we will also make sure that tell people that if they want to come, that they should at least come to a meeting and be able to sit in through a meeting and make sure that this is something that they want to do. Okay, in that aspect, and we'll get it disseminated out to you guys. Is that okay with everybody? All right. Nancy, you've been very patient.
I just wanted to take advantage of having GES residents and business owners represented here. Very, very important what's happening around marijuana issues. Aldous Brooks chairs the committee that is looking at an omnibus bill that's going before the City Council on Monday. Debbie, I was at one of the meetings and spoke up about non-notification. and Debbie Ortega put in a request to have a public hearing. And so the public hearing is going to be this Monday at City Council. Just found that out today. So please get people to attend. If anyone wants to see the information about it, I have a letter composed. But the biggest thing is that because in this area, the grows are in IB and IBs, and those were use by rights. There were never any notifications about businesses coming in, and so we need to have that distinction that RNOs and individuals can trigger public hearings for conforming, which would be they're in the correct zoning. We want to have notification about renewals, licensed renewals that are in the area. They are putting in language about any new retail is already, the language is already there to get, to have public hearings with needs and desires, which were never a part of it. They're going to put in the omnibus bill about the medical marijuana centers have to have needs and desires hearings. And license transfers now have to have public hearings with needs and desires. And that's really critical because there are 200, last year there were 200 license transfers, and right now those could come into the GES neighborhood. So the first thing is the omnibus bill. You may have heard about the 2-year moratorium, okay? What has happened is the weekly work sessions on that have blown the lid off of that. And so now there are going to be work sessions going on into the spring, into February and March. So it'll be really critical to see what the City Council does. They may end up not having a 2-year moratorium, but looking at changing all kinds of regulation, looking at the whole marijuana issue comprehensively. Zoning is going to be one of the work sessions. And I had requested through Judy that the HIA report be one of the work sessions because the council members are making decisions and they're not even referencing the HIA report, which is really critical and informs and impacts any of the changes. So please, 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 anybody that can come, get people to show up. Hopefully on Monday. Well, the city council meeting
5:30.
5:30. However, the public hearing part will not be until after the break. The city council will be having their session about it, and then after the break will be public hearing. So,
But if you want to testify, you have to sign up at the break.
It's this Monday.
At 6.
I know, you don't get
Right.
notice. I mean, we just found out this afternoon. So,
We have to get there to sign up because the marijuana industry is organized.
You
They
saw.
have lawyers, they have lobbyists. And if we're not there first to show up to sign up, all them people will be there and we'll be left out again. We have to be there early, about 4:30. No, we're never getting left out.
You need,
You ever get left out? Everybody got left out? You can't get left out again.
you need to be, if you're going to sign up, the city council's gotten really, really strict about sign-up procedures because you no longer can sign up with somebody else. If you want to sign up at the break, I would strongly recommend that you be there by 5:30 or no later than 5:45.
It's on the first.
Yeah.
and I
have to
just
be a
want to
half
say
hour
that
earlier,
NOLA
'cause they do it
and
at
through the GES Live Well had two, when they were studying social impact, had two ladies from GES Live Well, Focus Points, and they did their testimony about what daily life was, living with the odors, and like one of them said their 4-year-old child can identify the smell of marijuana, will go outside and say it's a marijuana day. And that kind of blew the lid off, I think, the city council procedures, and that's when they're like, oh, we have to be looking at more than just the moratorium piece. So it was very, very impactful. So
May I ask a
it's-
question on behalf of National Western? Are they also thinking of when you can show up to testify of changing the boundaries or anything like that? Because Paul Andrews tried testifying numerous times against some of the facilities, and he was informed that he did not have standing and could not
Is that
testify.
at
Oh,
the
because he
planning
was
board or
not-
at City Council?
No, at the
Public hearing?
Excise and Licensing Board.
Okay.
Yeah, excise.
about a specific location, or just because you have to be within 5 blocks or whatever. So we want to trigger that it can be, now they have it like right now that they're going to change it that you have to have 10 people within a 5-block radius can trigger a public hearing, and we want it to be an RNO can do that. So
That's a good thought.
But so anyway, if you have any input on that, and they'll be hearing it again on February 8th also. So, write about that.
We're also going to be putting together a letter to kind of circulate to everyone. We'll try to make sure that everyone gets copies of it. We're going to also do a template. You can do letters up, organizations that can be involved, flood this, get it back to us. We want to personally hand deliver this to City Council to let them know that really we're really working hard to kind of get these things changed. And we can't do anything about some of the locations that are presently here, but what we can do, there's an ungodly amount of pending
pending applications
that are sitting in the wings right now. And if we can't get anything done here, when this either moratorium or any of this is over with, okay, these things are going to open up. And all of a sudden there's going to be a flood of these things on top of what we already have here. And right now we already have, out of 400 locations in the city and county of Denver, okay, we have 25% of them located here in the GES area, which is like, and we only have 2% of the population. I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous.
And the thing about the locations are, though, 400, I think it's either 414 or 441 locations citywide, but those have 1,000 licenses. Those 414 have generated 1,000 licenses because a location can have several licenses. So, anyway.
And then cultivation, they are not within that 1,000-foot.
Oh yeah, there's no 1,000-foot buffer for the grow facilities. That's why there's something.
Stores have a 1,000-foot buffer, but the grow facilities, they can put them anywhere they want to put them.
And those issues will be, yeah.
So we need
to go directly behind the Roosevelt athletic fields.
Okay. Tracy, before you leave, we want to talk about your rhino party, real quick. Know it? When is it?
It's April 23rd.
So we have time. Got it.
I'd just like to make one
Hey guys, whoa, guys.
I'd like to make one last announcement here, and that's just that we're having a Globeville Discovery Day on a week from Saturday. It's February 6th at Holy Transfiguration on 47th and Logan. We're doing a Discover Denver survey right now, and it's going through the GES neighborhood right now. It's going through Globeville. It's really in full gangbusters there. And so what we're asking is for people to come learn about the program on Saturday, February 6th, as well as bring your history, your stories, because this is really what is going to inform the whole survey, the stories of the residents, as well as if you have any photographs. I have some flyers. It's in English and Spanish, so if you want to grab one, I will just put this down here.
The other thing that was, I think Councilman Albus Brooks handed out is his event for Garden Place Elementary. All right, we're done.